Admiral Kong Taeho stood at the window of Earth's orbital station and watched the alien ship pass by. It was the third inspection this month. The Galactic Council always sent their ships to check on humanity. They wanted to make sure Earth was still weak, still safe, still caged. For 300 years, this had been Earth's reality. Humanity had joined the Galactic Council long ago, but they were never treated as equals. The Council called Earth a protected species world. It sounded nice. It was not nice. It meant humans were too dangerous to be trusted, too aggressive, too unpredictable. The Council feared what humans might do if they ever got real power, so they made rules. Humans could not build weapons in space. Humans could not have military ships. Humans could not leave their own solar system. Humans could only sit on their little blue planet and watch as other species flew freely among the stars. Lieutenant Hannah walked up beside the Admiral. She was a young woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. She had served under Taeho for 7 years, and she hated the Council just as much as he did. "Another inspection," she said quietly. "They really don't trust us. Would you trust us?" Taeho replied. His voice was calm, but there was something hard underneath it. "They have read our history. They know what we did to each other. The wars, the bombs, the suffering. They think we are monsters." Hannah crossed her arms. "We are not monsters. We just fight hard when we need to." That is exactly what scares them. The alien inspection ship moved slowly past the station. Its scanners swept over everything, looking for weapons, looking for secrets. They would find nothing. They never did, because humanity had learned to hide very well. What the Council did not know was that Earth had been preparing for this moment for 3 centuries. In deep underground bases, human scientists built ships that should not exist. In hidden factories beneath the ocean, workers assembled weapons that broke every Council law. In secret asteroid stations, soldiers trained for a war that might never come. Every human leader for the past 300 years had added to this hidden strength. They passed the secret down from generation to generation. They waited. They prepared. They did not want revenge. They wanted something simpler. They wanted freedom. And today, finally, the Council had given them a chance to take it. Taeho's communication device buzzed. He looked at the screen and felt his heart beat faster. The message was from Earth's president, Baek Jia. It contained only 4 words. They declared war. Finally. A small smile crossed Taeho's face. It was the first time he had smiled in years. "What is it?" Hannah asked, noticing the change in his expression. "The Council has declared war on Earth," Taeho said. "They say we showed aggression during a mining dispute near Jupiter. They say we are a threat to galactic peace." Hannah's eyes went wide. "War? They're attacking us?" "They think they are." Taeho turned away from the window. "They expect us to surrender in a few days. They think we are helpless. They think 300 years of inspections kept us weak." "Right. They didn't." "No, they didn't." Taeho walked to the main control room of the station. Officers sat at their screens, going about their normal duties. None of them knew yet. None of them understood that everything was about to change. He pressed a button on the central console. A signal went out across the solar system. It reached hidden bases on Mars. It reached secret stations in the asteroid belt. It reached facilities buried in the ice moons of Neptune. It was a signal that humanity had waited 300 years to send. The signal was simple. Wake up. Across the solar system, doors began to open. Lights turned on in places that had been dark for decades. Engines that had never been tested started to roar. Ships that the Council did not know existed began to rise from their hiding places. On Earth, President Baek Jia stood before a camera. Her face was calm. Her voice was steady. Her eyes burned with something that had been building in humanity for 3 centuries. "People of Earth," she said, "today the Galactic Council declared war on us. They have decided that humanity is too dangerous to exist freely. They believe they can defeat us quickly. They believe we are weak." She paused and let the words sink in. "They are wrong. For 300 years, we have hidden our true strength. We have let them think we were helpless. We have let them believe they controlled us. But we were never controlled. We were waiting. We were preparing. And now, at last, we are ready. In military bases around the world, soldiers stood at attention and watched their president speak. In homes and offices, families gathered around their screens. Everyone knew this moment was coming. Their grandparents had told them. Their parents had prepared them. Now, it was finally here. The council feared us because of what we might become, Gia continued. They were right to fear us. But they made a terrible mistake. They gave us 300 years to become something even greater. They gave us time to prepare. They gave us a reason to unite. And now they have given us permission to show the galaxy what humanity can really do. Back on the orbital station, Admiral Kung Teho watched the president's speech with pride. Beside him, Lieutenant Yoon Hana stood straighter than she ever had before. Sir, she said, the fleet is ready. All ships are reporting in. We have over 1,000 vessels waiting for your command. Teho nodded. 1,000 ships. Ships they never knew we had. Ships they never believed we could build. He looked out the window one more time. The council inspection ship was still there, still scanning, still believing it was in control. That inspection vessel, Teho ordered. Tell them to leave our space immediately. Tell them the cage is open. And tell them that Earth is coming. The message went out. The alien ship stopped scanning. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, the inspection vessel turned and fled toward the edge of the solar system. The war had begun. And for the first time in 300 years, humanity was no longer hiding. The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for 40,000 years. The oldest species, the Vorin, had conquered hundreds of worlds. Their ships numbered in the millions. Their soldiers had never known defeat. When they declared war on Earth, they expected it to be over in a week. On the Vorin homeworld, High Chancellor Kellos sat in his great chair and watched the war reports come in. He was old, even by Vorin standards, and he had seen many species rise and fall. Humans were just another problem to be solved, another aggressive species to be put in their place. Our fleets will reach Earth's solar system in 3 days, his advisor Tareem reported. We have sent 50,000 ships. Humans have nothing that can stop us. Kellos nodded slowly. Good. This war was necessary. Humans were becoming too curious, too ambitious. They needed to be reminded of their place. Yes, Chancellor. This will be a quick victory, but the quick victory never came. On the first day of the war, something impossible happened. A fleet of human warships appeared near Neptune's moons. Not 10 ships. Not 100 ships. 1,000 warships, rising from the ice like ghosts. Captain Park Soo-jin stood on the bridge of the flagship Gwanggaeto. She was 35 years old, with dark hair tied back and eyes that missed nothing. She had trained for this moment since she was a child. Her father had trained for it. Grandfather had helped build these very ships, knowing he would never live to see them fly. All ships report ready, her navigation officer announced. The fleet is at full strength. Soo-jin looked at the screens around her. 1,000 ships, each one built in secret, each one carrying weapons the council had forbidden. Humanity had broken every rule, violated every treaty, and done it all without anyone knowing. Open a channel to all vessels, she ordered. Channel open, Captain. This is Captain Park Soo-jin of the Gwanggaeto. For 300 years, our ancestors built and waited. They worked in secret. They kept the faith. They never gave up hope that this day would come. Today, we honor their sacrifice. Today, we show the galaxy that humanity will not be caged. All ships, execute Directive 1.
Ow.
The fleet moved as one. The human ships were fast, much faster than anything the Council had ever seen.
Ow.
They used engines, based on principles that alien scientists said were impossible, but human engineers had found a way. They always found a way. The Council's border stations were the first targets. These were massive military bases that protected the edges of Council space. Each one had enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The Council believed they were unbeatable. They fell in 6 hours, back on the Vorin homeworld. Chancellor Kellos received the news with disbelief, read the reports 3 times, certain there had been some mistake. This cannot be correct, he said. The humans have no fleet. We inspected them for 300 years. We watched their every move. Torium's hands were shaking as he handed over more data. Chancellor, the reports are accurate. The humans have ships we have never seen before. Their weapons are unlike anything in our records. They move faster than our tracking systems can follow. How is this possible? Where did these ships come from? We do not know. They appear to have been hidden in the outer parts of their solar system. Hidden for centuries, Kelos felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Fear. Real fear. They tricked us. For 300 years, they made us believe they were weak. We believed them. What do we do now, Chancellor? Kelos stood from his chair. His old bones ached, but his mind was sharp. Send everything. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have. We outnumber them 50-1. Numbers will win this war. But numbers were not winning the war. On Earth, President Gia watched the battle reports with her military council. The news was better than anyone had hoped. The council was in chaos. Their commanders did not understand what they were facing. Our ships are faster than theirs, Admiral Kong Tae-ho explained, pointing to a holographic map. Our weapons are more accurate. And our soldiers fight differently than they expect. Differently how? Gia asked. The council species fight by rules. They have formations, patterns, predictable movements. Our captains think for themselves. They adapt. They improvise. Oh. The enemy does not know how to respond. Commander Ru Yun, the fleet's logistics officer, stepped forward. She was a quiet woman who rarely spoke, but when she did, everyone listened. We cannot win through force alone. We are still outnumbered, but we do not need to destroy their fleet. We only need to break their will to fight. Gia nodded, explained. The council is made of 12 species. They've been allies for thousands of years, but they are not truly united. Some species joined by choice. Others were conquered. If we show them that the council can be defeated, some may choose a different path. It was a risky plan. But humanity had been taking risks since the first human looked at the stars and dreamed of reaching them, Captain. Park Soo-jin received her new orders the next day. She was to take her fleet deep into council territory. Not to conquer, not to destroy, but to show everyone watching that the mighty Galactic Council could bleed. We are not here to win a war, she told her crew. We are here to start a revolution. The Gwanggaeto and its sister ships jumped into enemy space. They struck military bases and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. They freed prisoner transport ships and broadcast the footage across council channels. They showed the galaxy that humans were not monsters. They were liberators. Within a month, the council's outer territories were in chaos. Species that had been conquered long ago began to question their masters. Whispers spread from world to world. The humans are coming. The humans cannot be stopped. The humans are setting everyone free. On the Voron homeworld, Chancellor Kelos watched his empire begin to crack. For the first time in 40,000 years, the Voron were losing, and he had no idea how to stop it. He called an emergency meeting of the council. 12 species gathered to discuss the human problem, but they were no longer united. Fear had divided them. Some wanted to surrender. Others wanted to fight harder. Some quietly were already reaching out to Earth. The sleeping giant had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same again. 3 months into the war, the Galactic Council still outnumbered humanity 50-1. By every logical calculation, Earth should have been destroyed. The Council had more ships, more soldiers, more resources, and more experience. They had conquered hundreds of species, across thousands of years. But humans did not fight by logic. General Shin Haeon stood in the command center of a captured space station. Watching his soldiers prepare for the next battle, he was 52 years old, with gray hair and a face marked by years of training and discipline. But his eyes were young, full of a fire that burned brighter every day. The council commanders called him a madman. His tactics made no sense to them. He attacked when he should have retreated. He retreated when he should have attacked. He split his forces when military wisdom said to stay together. He fought in ways that broke every rule of galactic warfare, and he kept winning. General, his communications officer called out, "The enemy fleet is approaching Nexus Station. They have 300 ships. We have 40. You nodded calmly. Good. Tell our ships to scatter. Make them chase us. and prepare the broadcast. The broadcast? Sir, it's time to remind them what they're fighting. The Battle of Nexus Station became legendary, not because of how many ships were destroyed, but because of what happened to the enemy soldiers who survived, as high-end small fleet danced around the larger Council force. Earth's Psychological Warfare Division went to work. Dr. Onari led this division from a hidden ship at the edge of the battle. She was a small woman with gentle features, but her mind was a weapon more powerful than any gun. "Begin transmission," she ordered. Across the Council fleet, screens flickered. Videos began playing on every channel. The Council soldiers saw humans getting injured in battle and continuing to fight. They saw humans with broken bones still charging forward. They saw humans laughing while bleeding. They saw humans survive damage that would kill any other species 5 times over. One video showed a human Marine with a metal rod through his shoulder, still firing his weapon and shouting at his enemies. Another showed a pilot whose ship was falling apart, steering it directly into an enemy vessel while singing a song from Earth. The Council soldiers watched in horror. What are these creatures? One alien captain whispered. The answer came from a human prisoner they had captured earlier that day. Sergeant Kim Day sat in an interrogation room on the Council flagship, surrounded by alien officers trying to make him talk. "Tell us your fleet positions," the lead interrogator demanded. "Tell us your weaknesses," Day smiled. He had been smiling since they captured him, which made the aliens very nervous. "You want to know our weaknesses? We don't have one. You want to know our secret? We don't give up. You can break our bones. You can burn our ships. You can take everything from us. And we will still keep coming. That is impossible. Every species has limits. We don't." Day leaned forward, still smiling. "You've been ruling the galaxy for 40,000 years. You've forgotten what it's like to fight someone who has nothing to lose. We spent 300 years in a cage. 300 years being told we were too dangerous to be free. Do you understand what that does to a species? It makes us patient. It makes us angry. And it makes us very, very determined." The interrogator stepped back. There was something in the human's eyes that made his blood run cold, back at Nexus Station. General Hyen's plan was working perfectly. The Council fleet was scattered, chasing human ships that refused to be caught. Their formation was broken. Their commanders were arguing. And their soldiers were starting to refuse orders. "Sir," an alien officer reported to his captain, "the crew is asking to retreat. They say the humans cannot be killed. That is ridiculous. They are made of flesh and blood like anyone else." "Yes, sir." "But they do not act like it." This was the true human weapon. Not their ships, not their guns, but their spirit. The Council species had been at peace for so long that they had forgotten what real war looked like. They fought carefully, protecting their lives, following rules. Humans fought like each battle was their last. They took risks that seemed insane, and those risks kept paying off. Commander Ruyun coordinated the supplies from Earth's orbital station. She worked 20-hour days, moving resources across impossible distances. Keeping the fleet alive through pure willpower and brilliant planning. "We're running low on fuel for the 7th Fleet," her assistant reported. "Redirect the supply ships from Sector 9. Tell them to travel through the asteroid field." "Ma'am, that route is dangerous. We could lose ships. We'll definitely lose the 7th Fleet if we don't. Take the risk." The supplies arrived. The 7th Fleet survived. Another impossible victory added to the growing list. Admiral Kung Tae-ho watched it all from Earth, coordinating the biggest war humanity had ever fought. He barely slept anymore. Every decision he made affected millions of lives. Every mistake could mean the end of everything. But he did not feel tired. He felt alive. "The Council is starting to crack," Lieutenant Yoon Hana reported. 3 member species have requested secret talks with Earth. They want to know our terms.
Ow!
"Our terms are simple," Tae-ho replied. "Freedom. For everyone. No more cages. No more protected species. No more masters and servants. They may not accept that. Then we keep fighting until they do." On the front lines, Captain Park Soo-jin led her fleet in another daring attack. Her ship, the Gwanggaeto, had become a symbol of human defiance. The Council put a bounty on her head. They sent their best hunters after her. She defeated them all. "Captain," her first officer said, We're receiving a message from the Council flagship. They want to negotiate. Sujin shook her head. Not yet. They're not broken yet. They still think they can win. How will we know when they're broken? When they stop offering terms and start asking for mercy. The war continued. Every day, humanity surprised the galaxy. Every day, the Council grew weaker. And every day, more species began to believe that maybe, just maybe, the cage that held them all could finally be opened. The humans were not just fighting a war. They were teaching the galaxy something it had forgotten long ago: hope. 6 months into the war, the Galactic Council called an emergency summit on the Vorin homeworld. The 12-member species gathered in a great hall that had hosted victory celebrations for 40,000 years. But there were no celebrations today. Today, there was only fear. Chancellor Kellos stood before the assembled leaders. He had aged a decade in 6 months. His hands trembled as he spoke. Half of our territory has fallen, he announced. Our fleets are in chaos. Our soldiers refuse to fight, and the humans show no signs of stopping. A leader from another species stood up. Then we must surrender. This war cannot be won. Surrender to humans. They are a primitive species. They were supposed to be our subjects, not our conquerors. And yet they are winning. The argument continued for hours. Some wanted to fight harder. Some wanted to give up. But one voice raised a question that changed everything. Has anyone noticed? A quiet leader asked. That the humans are not conquering our worlds. The room went silent. It was true. On every world the humans touched, they did the same thing. They destroyed military bases. They freed prisoners. They dismantled the machines that kept conquered species under control. And then they left. They did not claim the worlds. They did not install governors. They did not take resources or demand tribute. They simply freed everyone and moved on. They are not building an empire, the quiet leader continued. They are tearing one down. Chancellor Kellos felt the truth of these words like a knife in his heart. The humans did not want to rule the galaxy. They wanted to end the idea of ruling itself. They wanted every species to be free, and that was far more dangerous than any conquest. If they succeed, Kellos whispered, everything we built will be destroyed. Every alliance, every treaty, every system of order, it will all collapse. On the other side of the galaxy, Ambassador Munari prepared for the most important mission of her life. She was 28 years old, small in size, but enormous in courage. She had studied galactic politics since childhood, preparing for a moment like this. You're going alone? Admiral Tejo asked her before she left. Yes, that's the point. I need to show them we're not afraid. They could kill you. Munari smiled. Then my death will prove what we've been saying all along. Humans don't give up, even when it costs us everything. She traveled to the Vorin homeworld in a single small ship. No weapons. No guards. Just one young woman carrying a message that would change history. The council leaders watched her walk into their great hall. She was so small compared to their massive forms. So fragile. So human, you have come to surrender, Kellos asked, hope flickering in his old eyes. No, Ares' voice was calm and clear. I have come to offer you something better. She placed a small device on the table. It projected a hologram showing stars, ships, and plans. 300 years ago, you put humanity in a cage. You told us we were too dangerous to be free. You watched us, controlled us, limited us. And you know what we did? We used that time to become better. Not just stronger, but wiser. We learned patience. We learned to think before we act. We learned that true power is not about conquest. It is about choice. The council leaders listened in silence. You declared war on us, Ari continued, because you were afraid of what we might become. Well, congratulations. Your fear created exactly what you were trying to prevent. You made us into the force that would challenge everything you built. She pressed a button on the device. The hologram changed to show technical drawings, blueprints, formulas. This contains everything. Our engine designs, our weapons technology, our medical advances, our agricultural systems, all of it free for any species that wants it. Kellos could not believe what he was hearing. You are giving away your advantage? Why? Because it was never about advantage. Ari looked around the room at all the alien faces staring at her. You have spent 40,000 years building an empire based on fear. You conquered species and told them they needed you. You made yourselves masters and everyone else servants. But here's the truth you never understood. The galaxy doesn't need masters. It needs partners. It needs friends. It needs equals. And you think humans should decide this? You think you have the right? We don't have the right to decide anything for anyone. That's the whole point. We're not offering to replace you as rulers. We're offering to end ruling altogether. Every species makes their own choices. Every world governs itself. No more empires. No more protected species. No more cages. A long silence filled the great hall. The council leaders looked at each other, uncertainty on their faces. For 40,000 years, they had known exactly how the galaxy worked. Now a young human woman was telling them everything could change. Finally, one of the leaders spoke. It was from a species that had been conquered by the Vorin long ago, forced to join the council against their will. I accept, he said simply. Another leader stood. I accept as well. One by one, voices joined in. Species that had been enemies began to see a new possibility. Not war without end, but peace with freedom. Chancellor Kelos watched his empire crumble with every voice. He could fight. He could order his remaining fleets to attack. But he was tired. So very tired. What guarantee do we have, he asked slowly, that humans will not simply become the new masters? Ari smiled. None. You have to trust us. I know that's hard. We were in a cage for 300 years because you didn't trust us. But here I am, alone, unarmed, standing in the heart of your power. If we wanted to conquer you, would I be here like this? It was not logic that convinced Kelos. It was the look in her eyes. The absolute certainty that she believed what she was saying, the complete lack of fear. Perhaps the old chancellor said finally, we were wrong about humans. Perhaps you are not monsters after all. We are exactly what you made us, Ari replied. You gave us 300 years to think about freedom. We thought about it very carefully, and now we want to share what we learned. She reached out her hand in the human gesture of friendship. After a long moment, Chancellor Kelos took it. The war was not over yet. But in that great hall, with that simple handshake, the ending became certain. The galaxy was about to change forever. 1 year after the war began, it ended. Not with Earth's defeat, as the Council had expected. Not with total victory either. It ended with something nobody had predicted. It ended with hope. The Galactic Council dissolved on a quiet morning. 12 species that had ruled together for 40,000 years simply agreed to stop. There were no final battles, no dramatic last stands, just a signing ceremony on a neutral space station, where leaders put their marks on a document that changed everything. Admiral Kung Teho watched the ceremony from the bridge of Earth's newest station. He stood straight despite his exhaustion. He had not slept properly in a year. He had made decisions that cost lives and saved lives. He had carried the weight of humanity's future on his shoulders. But today, that weight felt lighter. Captain Park Soo-jin stood beside him. Her famous ship, the Gwanggaeto, floated nearby, its hull scarred from 100 battles. She had become a hero during the war. Songs were sung about her on a dozen worlds. But she did not feel like a hero. She felt like someone who had done what needed to be done. It's really over, she said quietly. This part is over, Teho replied. The next part is just beginning. Through the station's great windows, they could see ships from dozens of species gathering. Not for war, for the first meeting of the new Galactic Assembly. Every species would have an equal voice. Every world would govern itself. No masters. No servants. No cages. General Shinhayan arrived next. The man who had become legend for his impossible tactics looked older than his years. War had changed him, as it changes everyone. I never thought I would live to see this day, he said. I trained my whole life to fight. I never learned how to do anything else. You'll learn, Teho said. We all will. Ambassador Munari was the last to join them. The young woman who had walked alone into the council's heart looked tired but satisfied. She had worked without rest since that first meeting with Kelos. building bridges between species that had been enemies for thousands of years. "The assembly is ready," she announced. "Representatives from 37 species have arrived. More are coming." Ada-7 Sujin repeated. "A year ago, we were alone. Now we have 37 allies." "Not allies," Ari corrected gently. "Friends. There's a difference." They watched together as the assembly began its first session. Species that had conquered each other, fought each other, hated each other for generations, now sat at the same table. It was awkward. It was difficult. But it was happening. President Bikjia gave the opening speech. She stood before representatives of the galaxy and spoke simple words. For 300 years, humanity dreamed of this moment. We dreamed of walking among the stars as equals. We dreamed of meeting other species, not as subjects or masters, but as neighbors. Today, that dream becomes real. Not because we won a war, but because we chose together to try something new. It will not be easy. We will disagree. We will struggle. We will make mistakes. But we will face those challenges as free peoples, making our own choices, writing our own future. The assembly applauded. Even former enemies clapped their hands or made their species gesture of approval. It was not perfect unity, but it was a start. Later that evening, Admiral Tejo walked through the station's observation deck alone. He looked at the stars and thought about everyone who had made this moment possible. The engineers who had built ships in secret, the soldiers who had fought and died, the leaders who had kept the faith for 300 years. Lieutenant Yoon Hana found him there. She was a captain now, promoted for her service during the war. But she still called him Admiral, and he still valued her opinion above almost anyone else's. "Sir," she said, "we're receiving signals from the edge of the galaxy. Unknown species. They've been watching us." Tejo turned to look at her. "Watching us? The war. The changes. Everything. They want to meet us. What do we know about them? Nothing. They're completely unknown. Beyond anything in council records." For a moment, Tejo felt the weight return. New species meant new challenges. New possibilities for conflict. New dangers. But then he smiled. The same smile he had worn the day the council declared war. "Tell them we'll be there," he said. "Tell them humanity has been waiting 300 years to make new friends." Hannah nodded and left to send the message. Tejo looked back at the stars. They stretched out forever, infinite points of light representing infinite possibilities. For 300 years, humanity had looked at those stars through the bars of a cage. Now, the cage was open, and the stars were waiting in the assembly hall. Species that had been enemies began to laugh together. On a dozen freed worlds, people celebrated their first day of true independence. Across the galaxy, children looked up at the night sky and dreamed of adventures their parents never could have imagined. The war had cost so much. Lives lost. Families broken. Wounds that would take generations to heal. But something had been born from that suffering. Something precious and fragile and absolutely worth protecting. Freedom. Real freedom. Not given by masters, but earned by everyone together. Captain Park Soo-jin returned to her ship. She walked through the corridors where her crew had fought and bled and never given up. Tomorrow, the Guangado would fly again. Not into battle. Into the unknown. To meet new species. To explore new worlds. To carry humanity's message to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, General Shin Hae-an began writing. He would spend years recording what he had learned about war, so that future generations might avoid the same suffering. His words would become required reading in academies across the galaxy. Ambassador Mooneri returned to her work. There were treaties to negotiate, disputes to resolve, trust to build. The galaxy would not change overnight, but it would change. She would make sure of it, and Admiral Kong Tae-ho finally rested. He sat in his quarters and looked at a photo of his grandfather, the man who had started building the secret fleet so long ago. The old man had known he would never see the ships fly, but he had built them anyway, trusting that future generations would finish what he started. "We did it," Tae-ho whispered to the photo. "We finally did it." Outside his window, the stars shone bright. A new day was dawning for the galaxy. And somewhere out there, beyond the edge of known space, new friends were waiting. The cage was open, the stars were calling, and humanity was finally free to answer.